Welcome to Get Offset. My name is Emily.
I'm Joan of Heart.
And quick corrections corner. The bad monkey is not, as we said, for some reason that is unknown to us, a clone. It's a tube screamer. Should have known as it was green.
Yes, I'm not a tube screamer person, so I
Neither
was
am
pretty
I.
much like, yeah.
I don't like either of those styles. I don't like
No,
tube
I'm
screamers nor
not.
clowns, so
No, neither am I. I don't like clans. I don't like tube screamers. I mean, I like rats. I like, more, I don't know, I guess heavier distortion pedals. Like, I'm particular about fuzz too. I'm picky, but yeah, like typically like a rat distortion is pretty much what I like.
yeah, I mean I haven't played a ton of tube screamers. I think the most tube screamery pedal I have is the Caroline Guitar Company, the Blues, which was their April Fool's pedal one year that I got on April Fool's. So that was pretty fun.
Nice. Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I
I don't know.
rented. Yeah.
You rented the
I I
Blues?
I rent no, I rented, just, one of the tube screamers just from, the Pedal Genie thing. Not Genie, yeah, you know what I mean. But yeah, I rented from them and I was just like I usually reserve renting for, like, pedals I'm on the fence about, and I don't really wanna foot the money and be wrong and then have to, like, figure out how to sell it and take a loss afterwards. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I did my whole, like, toss of, like, "Okay, well, let me see what Tube Screener is about." So I did the classic like Ibanez one but that one was white, so I think that's the new, I guess, NU Tube Screamer. I can't remember. But I tried that one. Yeah, it's just not my thing. I mean, it's valid of a sound, but yeah, just not me.
Yeah, there's lots of tube screamers out there. I
Yeah.
know JHS makes a pedal that's I think it's called the Bonsai. That's
Mm,
just tube
yeah, that
screamers
one.
and like slight variation. It's their tube screamer muffaletta. They also have one for the Rat. It's pretty neat how
Yeah,
they
Pack
do
Rat.
that. It's neat how they do that analog. So I had a muffaletta for a while and then I realized I just don't like muffs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very particular. I mean, I like the black mouth, which is basically mass electronic, I think, audio. I
That's
like
back.
theirs. Yeah, the Black Russian, which is the was it not the green one, but the black one from EHX, like a vintage one. But a lot of things I'm pretty selective, I guess, for when it comes to fuzz. But yeah, I have the pack rat from JHS. I like the fact that it's because I wanted to at some point get a turbo rat, but I didn't, obviously have the means at the time to get one. So the fact that I got that and I was like, okay, well now I know kind of like what that sounds like. And yeah, I like kind of how fatter of a sound it is compared to the other rats. And I know people say all rats are pretty much sound the same. And maybe it's just the volume level, who knows? But I like all rats, so, I'm not picky.
My favorite rat is Pizza Rat.
Hmm.
No. Nobody remember the
No, no,
Pizza
no,
Rat
Vase,
meme? Oh, Pizza Rat's a good
no.
meme. It's just it's
I'm
like a
gonna have to look
video
it up
of a
now.
it's a video of
Oh,
a
wait, no,
rat.
I do, yeah, in the subway, the pizza yeah, with the
Uh,
dragging it down the stairs, that one?
yeah. Pizza Rat.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I remember that
Nothing
one.
more quintessentially New York than Pizza Rat. When I lived in New York, worked 2 days a week in a building that was attached to a Wendy's, and I
Hmm.
remember asking my boss, like, "You ever go to that Wendy's?" And he's like, "No, because I know that we have rats, and if we have rats, they have rats." I also kinda
Oh,
thought,
shit.
"Well, doesn't everybody have rats here?"
Yeah, yeah, well, most
Picky.
likely.
I hated that. Hated that internship. I worked uh way in the back of the floor, and my
Mm.
boss's office for the first couple months, and then I switched to work with somebody else, was right by the bathroom. So
Oh,
everyone had to
no.
like walk through his office to get to the bathroom. It just smelled really bad.
Sucks.
So then I switched to
Oh,
working more closely with a man named Jason Consoli, and love Jason. Jason's great if you need PR. He's
nice.
probably busy, but he's he's great. Yeah, I love Jason. Um, yeah, so that is our corrections corner.
Yes, we are human. Mistakes
So,
happen. Like, we are not
uh,
all knowing.
yeah, the only person who pointed out is a Patreon supporter. So thanks to everybody
Yeah.
for not for not being dicks.
Tearing up the shreds.
Thanks. always appreciated to
Thank you for understanding.
yes, like I said, thank you
Yes.
so much for understanding. Always appreciated. But yeah, so I wanted to talk about just kind of something a little bit more lighthearted today. I
Mm,
thought we could talk about some albums that we think are just like essential listening for guitarists, musicians, and otherwise.
okay.
Yeah. So also kind of a low research topic, but I love talking about music and thinking about it. So
Yeah.
I I always joke about this, but it's also the truth. The television's Marquee Moon is, I think, just an essential record that everyone should have and everyone should listen to, especially guitarists, because the guitar work on it is so beautiful and good and hard at the same time. And I remember the first time I heard a television song, I was on a Delta Airlines flight because Delta used to have radio stations built into it's like more like a playlist, but you in the armrest, you could plug in your headphones and you
Yeah.
could go through channels and each channel kind of had like a different vibe and it was like a 1 hour or so curated playlist. And Steve Wynn had who's very talented. He had was chosen by Delta to do one of these, and he had television on it.
Oh.
And so I was just blown away. And I was like 12 years old or something. And I'm like listening to television, maybe like 14, 15. I don't know. Actually, you know what? I can give a closer year. I was 14 or 15 years old at the time. It just really rocked my world and changed my perspective on music in a really big way. So thank you, Steve Wynn and Delta Airlines. But my joke about that record is I've made every man I've ever dated buy it at a record
Rite
store.
of passage.
Rite of passage. You want to date me? You need to listen to some Tom Verlaine. God damn it. I was, not so bad because I can't tell you how many men have tried to introduce me to the Replacements.
Mm.
A lot of them. So
Does that mean
you
you have a type?
No, I think it just means music nerd men have
Yeah.
a perception. I've listened to the Replacements also since I was 14, and
Okay.
then every man I've dated afterwards has tried to introduce me to them, so it's fantastic. That's just like, I think my friend Michelle and I made that joke with each other once, but,
Mm.
yeah, we were those girls in high school and college, basically. But, See No Evil was the first song I ever heard by television, and obviously people talk about Marquee Moon in the solo a lot, but See No Evil that's a song for me, that's a guitar part for me, and I can't tell you how tickled I was to, in later years, find out that oh gosh, glitch, to find out that Elvis Costello
The
was,
Matrix.
inspired by, that song to write the guitar part for I Don't Wanna Go to Chelsea. So I love learning little bits and facts about music like that. Television's Marquee Moon, one of the most influential, like, I guess, post-punk albums of all time. Please check it out if you haven't. And men out there, please stop trying to introduce women to the Replacements. They might already know who they are. That's my spiel. And of course, Tom Verlaine recently left us, which is very sad.
Mm.
Mhm.
Sadness.
Yeah. So that's my pick number 1. You got anything good?
Yeah, well, I mean, well, good is always subjective, but I would definitely say one of my essential albums, and I think it's so hard because it was like 3 or 4 albums, and I was like, oh, I have so many. It's so hard to pick. I feel like I'm betraying other ones to make like a
At
choice,
this rate
but
at this rate, we'll get through more than 3 to 4.
probably. I wrote extras just in case.
Mhm.
So I didn't, obviously, offend any. Okay, so the album I would say that is kind of I listened to, I would say so much during 2020 besides, Impossible Weight, my obviously deep sea diver, is the group called Holy Holy, and the album is called When the Storms May Come. And that
Mm.
album from start to finish for me is not only lyrically something that I really, really love how vivid and the way the storytelling is, but also the way the guitars accompany it. The beginning of the album starts off slow with what do you call it? It is called Sentimental and Monday. And yeah, it really does, the overall feel of the song is very sentimental. And one of my favorite lines in that song is years, years, years pass and the faces change in the photographs. I like that kind of, you understand that obviously when you have friends, you have family, and of course, as it was just really a great description. And yeah, a lot of the lyrical imagery was my favorite. The other aspects of it that I really loved was the one song that really always sticks with me. It's called History. And it really is a nice kind of driving rhythm in the fact that a lot of the context of the song has to deal with, trying to make your mark, trying to work through obviously fear and the doing of things. Um, I'll read the lyrics because, again, the lyrics are like the most important part to me. At least in this song, it says, all this time, as I've tried to understand, I realized what I believe has moved again. And what are we, if not bones and blood and teeth? We're memories, imperfect films of who we've been. And the cloven tongue of fear licks softly at your ear at night. And the only risk you take is that all of your mistakes survive. And I always love that risk taking kind of, that's the only thing that's left behind. And the fact of doing, and the fear is always going to be there. That's perseverance, that courage. I like songs that kind of remind you of that it never goes away. Another one is You Can't Call for Love Like a Dog. The drive of that song and lyrics is just incredible. And of course, the way that love is described, you know, it's basically the rise and the fall. Like it's so many ways that it's described, and just the tone of the guitars in that song. Like a lot of them just have like a lot of driving rhythms that I love. Um, Holy Gin is great because obviously I'm a gin girl. But uh, I love the fact that it starts off as something that's kind of slow rolling into it, and then once like the pre-chorus right before the next verse hits, it's almost like a psychedelic dive into a lot of the orchestral kind of movement of all the guitars and everything together of the instruments. I really do love kind of albums that kind of break just kind of stereotypical um music forms that typically they're associated with. Yeah, this album from start to finish for me, I still can constantly listen to and just find that it makes me happy. It is something that I think in some of the guitar tones and the way, really it's the lyrics. I was just like, I listened to them, I was like, oh, I wish I could write like this. And that's also
Mhm.
like another album that I'll talk about later, like lyrical message delivery along with how the treatment is with the guitars and how the delivery is of the chords behind it, even when it falls away and the words are just by themselves to add emotional weight in somewhat of the silence and minimal
Mhm.
instruments. God, I love that so much. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's my first one.
I'm with you. I'm a big lyrics person too.
Mhm.
I know that lyrics aren't always the first thing a person hears in a song, but like bad lyrics can really take me
Mm.
out of it, man. Like I love the song Warrior by Scandal. That's Patty Smith, I don't know, it's Smith with a Y, but she has this line in that song, "Your eyes touch me physically." And every time I hear that lyric, I cringe so
Oh
hard.
no.
I'm like, "Ah, couldn't you have
That
said, like, your like, literally anything else? Like, your eyes
that re-
touch me physically?" No, nobody wants that.
that reminds me of a Heart song. And the lyric is
Yeah,
very similar. "You're all eyes touching me in the night. You're all eyes." Yeah, like, yeah, it's
but
basically, yeah,
not
it's about the same.
physically, but
Not
not
physically.
physically. Just like, that visual image of someone's eyes touching another person's physically,
Mm.
I mean,
You're taking your
that's
eyeballs
not
out and just touching them.
like, that sounds unsanitary.
It
I
does.
don't think. I don't think your ophthalmologist would appreciate you
No,
doing that
no.
at all, and that's just really, really gross. But
Yep, keep
speaking
your
of,
eyes to
like, good
yourself.
yeah, but, like, speaking of good lyrics, one of the records that I can always go back to is Lucinda Williams' "Car Wheels on a Gravel Road." That's my first Americana pick, for sure, but this album has such such classics on it. I mean, just the hearing "car wheels on a gravel road," that is very evocative of
Yeah,
a line by itself, but man, I can't even just looking at this track list, I couldn't pick a single song that's influenced me more than any of the others
yeah,
because it's all there. And like Joy, Still I Long for Your Kiss, Can't Let Go, Lake Charles, Drunken Angel is just a great song. Right in Time is such a great sexy song. But one I love the story of the recording
yeah.
of that album because it's one of those that was recorded multiple times because Lucinda felt like she just couldn't get it right.
Aw.
So, I believe Steve Earle called it the least fun he's ever had working on a record. But man, like, I like all of that worth it because I think it's one of the greatest records I've ever heard in my life and in the Americana genre. I think it's really difficult to pick another album, you know, from that era, that 90s, that maybe was more influential or even better. I dare say that the only one I can even think might compete with that would be like I hate to say Ryan Adams' Heartbreaker, but that's up there for me. But the Oh Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack.
Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
love that one too.
Yeah, I mean that introduced a hell of a lot of people to Americana. I'm sure that I'm not sure it was really called Americana then, but it was definitely like
No.
bluegrass, country, American music kind of stuff. All these influences and all these people like Alison Krauss, Emmylou Harris, and Gillian Welsh. Gillian Welsh. I'll get to that later. But just some phenomenal work. And you know, you listen to this album, you're probably not thinking so much about the guitars. You're thinking about Lucinda's lyrics and her gravelly delivery of them, her voice. And she just is one of those who's so phenomenal. And if I know she's had a stroke, so I don't know if she's still doing very many
Mm.
live shows, but to see her live was always kind of funny because she would do everything on stage that you're told not to do on stage. The swaying back and forth, she always has her lyrics out there in front of her. Really, but still, she's just a sight to behold, just a force of nature.
And those are always the best, and I always love also singers that have unique tones to their voice. I always find that I gravitate to those that are iconic that way.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of my favorite singers,
Mhm.
my favorite performers, I should say. Obviously, the Hold Steady, Craig Finn has a unique voice. Kathleen Edwards, she has a unique voice. Gillian Welsh has a unique voice. Lucinda does. I think it just like makes the music more interesting. Like I've
Yeah.
listened to a lot of country radio, pop country radio, most of it against my will. And
No.
man, all of those male singers, they sound the same.
Yeah,
Like they all
that's
have that
usually what
low
kept me
tenor.
away. Yeah.
Yeah, there's this homogenization of it. I find that the male singers in
Mm,
country music, at least pop country, generally sound the same, especially in the late 90s and early 2000s. They all
yeah.
kind of had the same thing going on. But I tended to gravitate away from that for a reason. Maybe someone with a little bit higher voice, maybe someone with a
Mhm.
much lower voice like David Berman, who's just one of the most phenomenal songwriters of all time. And I think that I would prefer someone with imperfect vocals and
Yeah.
a great song, message delivery than someone who's like sings like they're always like on the box, you know, always on auto tune or always perfect.
Oh, yeah, no, I appreciate imperfect.
Yeah. It's more human,
Yeah,
especially for
yeah,
a
of course.
genre like country, which, you know, I think of all the genres that have uh, a fetish for authenticity, country
Mm,
music's maybe one of the worst ones that I've had experience with.
mm.
It's yeah. I don't know how they
It's become a
rectify,
little
like
polished now. Yeah.
it's over polished now, but that people still expect it to be, like, authentic in some way. I'm like,
It's
"This
like
is."
you can't have both. Like
I mean, if you look back at country music in general, there have been huge swatches of time where country music was, especially the stuff out of Nashville, always very overproduced versus the stuff that was coming out of like Bakersfield. The Nashville sound is basically pop music with a pedal steel. Even
Okay.
for back then. Like I like that song, don't I think it's "Don't You Know It's the End of the World." I think that was recorded in Nashville with, like, that's the Nashville sound. It's from Girl Interrupted,
Okay.
if you're trying to peg where you know that one from.
Mhm.
Um, it's a very pivotal moment in the movie with Brittany Murphy,
I
pretty
remember
sure.
Brittany Murphy more so like rolling with the homies. R.I.P.
Clueless, yeah.
R.I.P.
Oh,
R.I.P.
oh,
Um,
yeah, I remember when she died, that was sad, but let's talk about something else.
yeah,
What
so let's talk about other things.
Yeah, let's talk about
Um,
anything else.
yeah, as far as like the next album that I'm choosing, it has a lot of influences for me. Um, I really, really do gravitate to artists that are very much world building or stories. Every album has a story. You have characters. It's very dramatic. And yeah, even the stage performance is like theater almost. I come from a background of, like, Alice Cooper, I've gone to those
Yeah.
stage shows, like, incredible, and, I've listened to a lot of the classics, like, Aerosmith, Blue Oyster Cult, like, everything that I kinda grew up on, and one of the things that I know I've mentioned it on the podcast, one of the great influence that I had when I was younger was Alice Cooper's album, The Last Temptation, which was a good story kind of album from start to finish. It even was paired with a comic book with Neil Gaiman in basically working with Alice Cooper, which was really cool. I do have it somewhere. The other album I would say, because I haven't gotten to the one yet, but I'm kind of having a pre kind of other ones that I like. Janelle Monae's Metropolis is very the
Mm.
same, where she's a robot and it's
That
basically trying to.
Afrofuturism.
Yes, I
Yeah.
so love that. Her music to me is just so conceptually vivid and amazing that like yeah, from start to finish that album it was just great. But the album I'm gonna go with for my next one is of course Ghost because I'm a Ghost fan.
Yep. Knew
And
that was
yep,
coming.
you knew that was coming. But funny thing is, I started off with maybe mentioning Prequel because that was the first album that I'd actually got into Ghost. I saw them. I listened to a little bit of one of the other albums, which was Meliora, and they won the Grammy for in 2016. But I really started with Prequel, and I saw them in November of 2018. And I listened to them lightly, but I wasn't really that kind of like, I guess, obsessed. And then I caught what they call a ritual live. And yeah, I was hook, line, and sinker. I then pretty much had the most incredible experience with the stage performance, the music, and everything. Everything was live by that point, all the nameless ghouls and everything. And yeah, for the next 6 months, I listened to the other four albums. Like I was in a trance for like 6 months. Like I just listened to that. It was just incredible. But the album I'm going to mention is Meliora for sure. Square Hammer, obviously. I'm naming one of the ones that if people listen to Ghost, like obviously is stereotypical. Of, oh yeah, those are the ones. So Square Hammer is pretty much like really great. It incorporates organs, very much I would describe as Scooby Doo chase music. If I was to
Mhm.
describe, or dark ABBA. Like that's really what
Dark
I
ABBA.
yeah, that's what I call Ghost, is dark ABBA.
Mhm.
Or, I love the heavy guitars in Pinnacle to the Pit. Cerise is really great. I love Majesty, but because it has some Kiss vibes to it. You
Mm.
have like some new nuances, but everything is such a amalgamation of like classic rock and also metal in some ways. But then, of course, when he sings, his voice is so nasally that at first you're like, oh, I don't know if this really works, but it like grows on you. And of course, over
Mhm.
the span of the albums, they started off really heavy. But of course, as they get obviously further along, and even the most recent album, Impera, which has more of, I would say, Def Leppard kind of sounding, kind of 80s vibes, more of the guitars and solos and the way things are sung. Spillwaves is great. But yeah, um, Deus Absentina, Mummy Dust is really great on Meliora. I could name others, but yeah, like that album from start to finish, and even like the little musical interludes, like there's no lyrics or nothing, but just kind of that whole like church chorus, like organy kind of stuff that it fades in and out between songs. It's really great. I've listened to a lot of interviews from Tobias Forge, which again, if people don't know, every papa, because there is a pope for each album
Oh.
that looks different, but it's the same guy behind a mask. So
Mm.
Tobias Forge, he basically in the interviews have talked about all the world building that this is, that every album, even on YouTube, they have these chapters or stories in between, and he always acts really like like goofy. Like they're not serious at all, even though it's like the lyrics and everything are very like, the opposite of the church, like the upside down dark church or Satanism or whatever.
Mhm.
But like it's very much like not like they know that they are being campy. Like it's not, to me, I don't feel it as serious. Like, cause again, I come from like listening to Alice Cooper where it's like, no, he's not really eating babies. Like,
No.
aside from the one time Ozzy bit on a bat that he didn't know about, I mean, he wasn't really
I
planning
mean,
on
why would
doing that
somebody
really.
why would he think someone's like, there's a real bat on stage? Like,
No one would have. Yeah. But yeah,
yeah,
like
still like
yeah, it's still,
Ozzy's done
poor
some
bat.
great listen,
He does.
Oz
He probably doesn't
Ozzy's
even
done
know where he is right now.
Oz Ozzy's done some crazy stuff outside of the bat thing that
Yes.
would haunt you, I'm sure.
Oh,
But
yeah.
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 But yeah, as far as I know, I have really enjoyed the interviews, hearing how Tobias Forge thinks and his approach to creativity, and of course, his overall concept of these albums. And yeah, like you can tell in every song the amount of passion and delivery. The guitars are also it's like, oh, so good.
Mhm.
Even in some of them that the lyrics aren't the best, I would say in prequel Life Eternal, it's
Mhm.
not really the greatest of lyrics, and it's often
Yeah.
very repetitive, but it's I guess the message in which it's trying to convey is sweet enough that it's okay. I guess they have ballads. They're a mixture of like ballads and like pseudo kind of religious subtext kind of stuff. But yeah, metal, classic rock, like they're amalgamation of so many things. But yeah, I really enjoy them as kind of like a guilty pleasure. And yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
sorry, not sorry, non apologetic.
No such listen, no such thing as guilty pleasures. I
Yeah.
believe that if you really like something, you're best to own it.
Mhm. You got it.
This episode of Get Offset is brought to you by Moog Music. For over 7 decades, Moog's product catalog has spanned everything from DIY theremin kits to custom large format modular systems. Moog instruments continue to inspire artists and listeners around the world. As music technology continues to evolve, the company and its employee owners carry on Bob Moog's devotion to creating innovative tools designed for the musician. Moog Music's latest venture is a reimagining of some of its most influential analog instruments of the past for today's production workflow. The Moogerfooger Effects Plug-ins are compatible with all major DAWs across Windows and Mac operating systems, making that Moog sound more accessible than ever. What you're hearing right now in the background, I use the plugin MF103, that is the 12-stage phaser. It's a descendant of the vibrant 1970s rack-mounted Moog phaser with an onboard LFO. What I love about this plugin is that it can go from very subtle to very wild, and I have a lot of fun going through the presets that come with it. It kind of unlocks things that I never would have thought possible with a phaser. Learn more about Moogerfooger Effects plugins by clicking on the link in the video description or show notes, depending on where you are watching and or listening, or by visiting software.moogmusic.com. That's software.moogmusic.com. I do also want to tell y'all I got something from Matoverse
Mm.
Electronics that I wasn't expecting. So I do just want to shout out Matt over there at Matoverse for this. Like, this has completely floored me. If you've listened to the podcast, you probably know I'm going through some home renovations that I wasn't really planning on having to do.
Me
And I
too.
commented on his desktop solar sound, and this
Oh,
is
that
a
oh,
light
that looks so
powered
cool.
light powered desktop uh saturator, desktop saturator, it says. This is great. Thank you so much, Matt. I've loved everything Metaverse that I've played. The Trimstortion is an early favorite of mine. The Echo Swell pedal. I recently did a demo and video and some social clips for the Flora Volt, which is basically a voltage starved fuzz, and you use Produce to make gainy sounds. So thank you so much, Matt. This was really unexpected. I'm floored by the generosity
That's
there.
lovely.
Everyone, please consider supporting Metaverse Electronics, or at least checking out what they have. Matt's one of my favorite current pedal builders, just consistently making unique, fun stuff. And I think we could all use a little bit more fun in pedals, because, as I often say, for most people, this is a hobby. It should be fun.
No, of course. And if a effects pedal is inspiring and unique, then yeah, you'll spend hours in the evening just getting lost in the sounds, and it's always fun playing with these little toys.
Mhm. Totally. Well, I want to talk about my next record. I'm sure people are surprised I haven't mentioned Prince yet, so I'm going to now.
You have waited, you have held back, now we shall receive.
Choosing one Prince album is very difficult. I was reading a list from Pitchfork of like the 200 best albums of the 80s, and they put Purple Rain at number 1. I can't disagree with that, but I'm going to say Parade. I
Hmm.
think that everyone should listen to his Parade record. It's so different from everything else in his repertoire. It's
Okay.
essentially the soundtrack to a very bad movie that he made. So the follow up to Purple Rain, really, people were really excited about that one. But he wanted to do it all in black and white, and he had more acting, and it was actually acting for him. And it's just not it's not a great movie. It's a movie I very much enjoy watching, and the music in it is very good. But you can hear the different influences on that record. Definitely more chill, more laid back. And, the single Kiss is on that record. That's reason enough to own the whole thing. Yeah, so Kiss, not like a lot of the other songs on the record, but still very, very fun. Fun piece of trivia about that song is when that song was number 1, Prince actually held the number 1 and 2 spots on the Billboard charts that week, because he wrote the number 2 song, Manic Monday.
Wow.
So, yeah, what a week. What a great week that must have felt like. Can you imagine? I'm sure there are songwriters who feel like this a lot, but that was that was an impressive feat, especially for back then. Another cool thing about that record is, if I remember correctly, the first 3 songs were tracked in a row, with Prince just
Hmm.
sitting down at like a drum or drum machine. He laid down the 3 drum tracks, rewound the tape, and then did the rest of the instrumentation all on his own there, just in the studio. And Susan Rogers, who was his tech at the time, said he would get impatient and ask if they could rewind the tape faster.
I do always love that he was pretty much a man that did everything himself. Like, to have that kind of conceptual, creative output is just incredible.
Like, I can't imagine sitting down and like programming the drums for 3 songs, sitting down and doing just the drums for
In
those
one
3
sitting.
songs. Yeah, and then the bass, and then the guitar, piano, vocals, whatever, all like that, like starting Like, it's
Yeah.
like building 3 houses at once,
Yeah,
building the
like
foundation 3 times in a row instead of building 1 at a time, which is how most people do it.
yeah, like I have to do it like like separate in spurts. Like one day I'm like, okay, here's like the bass line. Okay, another day like here's the guitar. Oh, what is the lyrics gonna be? Okay, that's a week. Like that's yeah, I can't do it all in one sitting. Like that's impossible for me.
Yeah, these things were fully formed in his head, and that's just stunning.
I wish. I wish.
Prince was an interesting genius in the fact that he
Hmm.
possessed multiple kinds of genius. He had the genius of like Mozart, musical, can
Hmm.
just like write out and understand everything. But he also had the physical genius of somebody bright like LeBron James, who has just such impeccable control over their body. Thus, like the guitar playing. Like
While
there's
playing,
multiple
yeah.
kinds. Yeah, there's multiple kinds of genius, and Prince possessed a few of them, and that's I think probably why we never stopped talking about him in his life, even though he never went back and revisited old stuff really, save for
Hmm.
1 or 2 times. He really was always looking forward to the point where
Forward.
he didn't put his music on streaming services and didn't keep that accessibility up there for younger generations. They found him on their own, and that is really impressive.
Organic. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of times legacy artists have to really push to keep their body of work relevant, and they do that by
Hmm.
putting songs in movies and commercials, promoting it on streaming, doing reissues of stuff. Prince really didn't do that. He was more interested in what was ahead. People would ask him, "What's your favorite record?" and he would say, "The next one."
Yeah, you, again, like I understand that in my aspect because like as an artist, it's always the next thing or what am I going to do next, not more looking behind you and what you've already done because for me, I'll find all the flaws. So like as far as like constant movement forward, yeah, it's always chasing like what's the next inspiration, what's the next best thing and yeah, just trying to even be your own market person at this point in this day and age. Like, I don't, yeah, as far as if Prince were alive today, like, I don't know in this climate what his take or what how he would exist in this time frame.
I'm really curious about what he would have thought about
Yeah.
lockdown
Oh my
and stuff
God.
like that,
Would he
but
would have made like 5 albums in like a week?
oh, that was a normal week for Prince, I'm pretty sure. He had, like I think he died having 3 albums and 2 or 3 albums in progress, if I
I
remember
heard there was a
correctly, and they
vault.
yeah, he had a vault, of unreleased stuff that people can depending on the quality of it, and it's
Hmm.
my understanding that, like, it wasn't particularly well maintained. They
I
could be
get you.
releasing stuff for 100 years
Yeah,
easily.
it's I understand that. It's like as a musician or somebody that records in their DAW and they would have like over the past year a whole bunch of stuff that they kind of recorded but it didn't go anywhere or wasn't fully developed, but it's there.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you write a song and, later you write a separate song and you realize that earlier song
Yeah.
you were trying to get to something
Yep.
else. Like Elvis Costello, his probably flagship song is still "Allison,"
Hmm.
and he had written a song earlier in his life and career called "Imagination is a Powerful Deceiver," and he wrote something like, listening back on "Imagination is a Powerful Deceiver," I can tell that I was trying to write "Allison."
I
And I
get you,
remember
yeah.
talking to, Eva from Charlie Bliss on an episode of the podcast, and, they had released their great album Young Enough, on in 2019, and then afterwards, they released an EP of, like, things that didn't make the album, things that were recorded earlier. There
Hmm.
was one song on that that really stood out to me as being close to one of the songs called "The Truth" that made the album. I remember asking Eva, like, do you feel like when you were writing the song that's essentially a B-side that you were trying to get to the truth, the song, and the idea?
Yes.
And, I don't think she's really thought about it very much, but I hope she does now.
Yeah, I think when we're posed with questions like that, you're like, oh, I never thought of that. You know what? You're probably right. I was trying to get to the truth of the heart of the song, but I didn't find it in that one. I found it in obviously the one that we went with, but I still felt that there was some validity in the one that was before, had something still. And yeah, it makes sense that
Yeah.
they would still have something separate to then release, kind of, at least to honor that process of the before.
Yeah, and I think Prince did that a lot, and
Mm.
so I think a lot of stuff in the vault is probably not fully baked, though. Susan Rogers did say, like, for his 1987 album Sign of the Times, some of those tracks were, like, demoed in
Hmm.
'82. And so he would go back and he would be like, this song that I had back then might fit this with some changes.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so you can always pull from the back catalog, but to dwell in it is like the things that were released. It's probably not the best. It's going to prevent you from going forward.
Yes. The
Perfecto de
fear.
Castro told me to like delete the YouTube Studio app on my phone because if you're looking at the numbers of your last video, it's going to change your thoughts about what you're going to do for the next one.
I
As a
agree with that.
marketer,
Hmm.
as a marketer, I want to look and see like what worked and what
Yeah.
didn't, but I fully understand what he was saying. And if I felt like my demos were more like yours or like Ann Silikowski's or Megan L's and like art, I would think about that less and just keep doing what I'm doing. But no, mine are I don't think of my demos as art. I have other avenues for that element of my creative brain, I guess. So I just try to focus on the device in front of me in a very laser focused ways. Whereas a lot of other demo folk, they're able to do both. And I really respect that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of disagree with you in the fact that it's not art because again, in the way that you are teaching or showing the pedal has its own structure and way of being presented visually that is still not only good for education for someone watching and deciding whether they like that pedal or not, but you're doing it in a manner that I think is easily accessible for people. So I still think it's in its own creative way. I do think so. But I
Well,
know I am
I think of it as performing, don't get me wrong.
yeah.
But the same way my sister-in-law does cooking classes,
Hmm.
and I've been to a few of them, and I'm like, Laura's an entertainer. Laura's a performer as an educator, and I feel like that's what all the best educators have in common is
Mhm.
that they understand that so you have to educate, entertain.
At the same time, yep.
Yeah, or you're just
Or
gonna
at
lose
least we try
everybody.
to. We try.
We try, we
It's
try.
always a leap of faith. Like you create these things and you release them up to the world and it's like the biggest anxiety riddled risk. It's like I don't know whether any of this is going to land. I don't know whether anyone's going to yeah, but it's just I have to create. Like that's the artist's it's that drive. You have to.
Yeah,
Or you go insane.
totally. Yeah. So, what's next for you? What's on your list?
All right. Well, the next one on my list is Ben Howard. Again, I know I struggle with a lot of artists to talk about. I would definitely say that Ben Howard's album, I forget where we were, that album was really great. Was it In Dreams was the first I heard. He does a lot of acoustic open tuning and the way that he plays the guitar there is notes and tapping and just the way the guitar sounds almost sounds like a tapestry of colors to me. Like apart from his lyrical genius and how descriptive he can be with some of the things that he's talking about because again, anytime that I've been, I guess, depressed or been in darker spots, I would say his music is very melancholy, but I feel like also at the same time, with the use of delay and reverb in his lyrics that sometimes are paired with the acoustic guitar, but also stripped away. Um, I don't know. I always feel like cradled in melancholy, if I could call it that.
Mhm.
I really love the artistry of his work, and even the one before, which is Every Kingdom. The Fear is one of my favorite albums. I mean, one of the favorite songs because of all the lines that always sticks with me in that song, and it's such a heavy really get to the point of the matter of us as humans and fear. The one line that sticks out with me always is, I will become what I deserve. And that always just sticks with me, obviously, in the nose to the grindstone. Anytime that I worry about whether things are going to be right, just putting the work in and just trying to persevere despite all hardships. Time is Dancing is great on the album. She Treats Me Well. Rivers in Your Mouth is really great. But I would definitely say a lot of pedals, because I've seen his pedal board when I was first kind of getting into things, he is one of the reasons why I have a Strymon brigader.
Mm.
He is definitely why a lot of my ambient kind of traversement went towards that direction when I first started playing, like, with the ukulele or with guitars before electric. Yeah, like, that's a lot of his effects are pretty much what I kind of strive for, and I still kind of strive for. Heavy delay, reverb, and yeah, a little light, I guess, drive on his tones, but yeah, just overall, it's just a treat to listen to his music.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really gotten into that in any of my picks, so I'm glad that you are, like, talking about how listening to other music is going to inspire the
Mhm.
sounds that we seek in our own music, not necessarily in attempts to recreate it, but just because
No.
it strikes our ear and we want to
Yeah.
expand on it maybe.
Exactly. Like any kind of artist that I love their music and their art and I'm inspired by, I don't ever set out to create what they create. I like the tones and sounds that I can then think about for myself to explore. Like, oh, on
Mhm,
this one track, oh, I love the way how washy that delay is. Oh, let me see if I can recreate that. Oh, I can't
mhm.
recreate that. Okay, what was on his pedal board? Okay, that.
Yeah, yeah,
For myself though, like I in the way that he writes and with all the tunings and everything, yeah, like he is a genius that I know I'm not going to obviously attempt to try to create myself. I don't have as much patience. But yes, I do appreciate his work and find that I'm always inspired by it.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. Um, I I'm sure that there's lots of gear I've bought because someone told me it was good. Um, but just there's something special about figuring out what made that guitar tone that really clicked with
Yes.
you. And sometimes my husband will ask me, "What pedal are they using?" I'm like, "I don't know."
I sometimes can hear it. I
Sometimes you can
sometimes
tell,
can.
but
Yeah.
you can be like, I more like, "Oh, well, that's a gated fuzz and a spring reverb," or something like that. Like, I can be less specific, but,
No,
um
that was a little funny recently. Like Anne did a post in which she was using like certain effects, and I was like, "Is that the flute?" Like setting on the Mel 9. She goes, "Only you would know
Oh,
that." She was like, "Only you would know that." Just to
yeah.
hear by ear and just go, "Yeah, that's the flute, isn't it?" I love that.
Yeah.
That's
I
one of the
there
ones I would say that got away. I sold it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there
Yeah.
there are definitely pedals that are more obvious than others.
Yeah.
I think the Sadisc Man by Catalan Bread
Mm.
is one of them. I think, some of those pedals by Hologram Effects or also Chase Bliss are,
Yeah.
relatively easy to pick out of a lineup, and if your ear is really tuned, you can
Mhm.
tell, like, what flavor of a distortion and
Yeah.
fuzz is, but, it's just a game I don't play that game very much.
I always like trying to play it. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
always right, but I'm just like, what is that?"
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, but my last pick
Mm.
is an album I've been listening to pretty much nonstop since it came out. It's Blue Rev by Alvvays, and I know I've talked about this band a lot. I
Mhm.
just went up to Canada to see them, and they're a band that gets better with every single record. Everything from
Nice.
the production to the songwriting to the vocals, Molly Rankin's vocals and their guitars and the drumming too, because they have a really terrific drummer named Sheridan, and they're just a killer. Like I can't tell you how I could probably count on one hand the number of times I've
Mm.
been to a show and just like watched the drummer, and they're probably both always shows, and also Pete Thomas from the Attractions and the Imposters, Elvis Costello's drummer. I like to watch him as well because he's fun to watch. But Blue Rev is just such striking songwriting. Molly Rankin's songwriting, especially, I know she works with Alec O'Hanley, the guitarist, to write most of the songs.
Mm.
But it's amazing how she can write a song that's both emotionally devastating and fucking hilarious at the same
I love
time.
those.
Like, there's a song about like knowing that your partner's cheating called Velveteen. Very sad song, but some of the lyrics in it are they're I'm sorry, they're funny, like, the visualizations that
Yes.
she makes, like, sliding down the banister in a closet full of lace. There's a lyric, "A closet full of lace acquired recently, who am I to debase in this economy?" And I think that I my friends and I say, "In this economy?" as a joke a lot, so maybe it's just
Yeah.
funny to me,
Yeah.
but, like, going to getting a bag of dicks in this economy? Going for a walk in this economy? Stuff like that. So, like, the guitar tone on that, obviously monster guitar tones, lots of effects and pedals, and
Mhm.
just used really smartly and effectively, and even on vocals some of the times. And it's a record I literally cannot stop listening to. Somebody please help me. I can't stop listening to this record.
I know what that's like, yes.
Yeah. So again, it's Blue Rev by Always. Ben was on lots of best album song of the year charts last year, going into this year. So obviously I'm not alone in that
No.
assessment, that I do think it's a record that people are going to be listening to for a long time. And we had to wait so long for it, but it was so worth it. So
No,
kudos to
it's worth the
Always.
wait.
Great record.
Yeah, and again, when you were talking about earlier in the fact that like you can hear the progression of sound and how they've gotten better with each album, I think it goes back to that whole thing where I know we've talked about is the whole thing of like start. The doing is where the progression happens.
Hmm.
Yeah, where you start, it may not be where you want to be, but hey, years down the road, you'll probably get to where obviously the sound that you're kind of trying to get, but you have to keep doing to get
And
there. And yeah,
and you have to keep moving forward and trying
yes.
new things
Mhm.
instead of trying the
Always.
same thing over and
No.
over.
Yeah.
Like, Vampire Weekend's another band that I think does that
Mhm.
really well. Nothing turns me off on a band like them having 2 records that sound
Sameness, yeah.
pretty much the
Stagnation.
same. And,
Yeah,
like,
I don't like it either.
I love Elvis Costello, and he's done it twice. And both times I'm like, "Man, I liked it for one." I was like, "Fine for one." But why did why did that song why did I mean, sorry, why did that record get a sequel and not this record? Like, why did oh my god, what was the shitty pop record he made? I mean, he made Punch the Clock and Goodbye Cruel World. Like, why did Punch the Clock get a sequel? Goodbye
Uh.
Cruel World sucks. Like, why did you do a sequel of your bluegrass record? Like, 1 was enough. I was fine with 1, but 2? You're asking too much of me, Elvo.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate when musicians and bands go and try new things and new styles of music. I respect that. It's not always for me. Like I'll even because I just talked about Ben Howard. I love Ben Howard's early works. His later works, not as much. There's some songs on there that I do like in the later albums, but again, they're for someone else, or you know what I mean? But I do appreciate it. I'm grateful for the albums that I can literally hold to my chest and hold dear. But yeah, I respect artists' freedom to be able to create things, even if it's shit. Like to me,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? It's
Hey,
fine.
if you
Yeah,
swing like,
swing for the fences.
when I played softball, I would, I would have to run laps if I
Hmm.
struck out looking. So remember, if you strike out looking, you gotta run laps. Nobody wants to run laps after a game.
No, no. When I played hockey, we did laps or sprints. I hated fucking sprints because I was a
Yeah,
goaltender. So all that equipment and doing sprints, we would get tired a
a
lot
lot
quicker
faster.
than everybody else. I hated sprints so
No.
much.
So we
All
got time
right.
for one more. What you got?
All right. Well, what I got for my last one, I figure I would come out swaying is ThunderPussy for sure.
Ah, yes. That's a Seattle hometown hero band
Yes.
for me.
Yes, I love Thunder Pussy. The 2 times that I've traveled, I traveled to, Portland in 2019 before the world fell. I saw them live there, and then when I went to Santa Fe, I saw them at Meow Wolf there, and that was an incredible show. The combination of their music reminds me in a lot of way of, like classic rock, Aerosmith, and a few others. Molly and Whitney Petty. God, Whitney Petty is one of the reasons why I thought to myself in the crowd, "I wanna play electric guitar." Like, I don't play like her, but just watching her on
Mhm.
stage and just fucking dominate and command and just fucking strut the way she does when she plays and that kind of, like, chemistry that's on
Swagger.
stage, yes, like, oh, yes, yes.
They are one of the coolest live bands out there.
Yeah, totally. Like, and that first album especially, I love the whole album, but again, like between me and talking with my partner Carlos, like he loves Speed Queen, which is of course the first track on there. I love, of course, ThunderPussy, which is one of the main tracks, and they usually play it towards the end because it's kind of like the battle cry at the end of the night. Velvet Noose, I love The Cloud. Torpedo Love, one of their music videos, they were filming that in a nuclear kind of like plant, I guess silo, I guess you'd call it for the
Mhm.
acoustics. That was great. Fever is really great. Gentle Frame, I think, was something about a music exact experience that they had, which was kind of like uncomfortable. I think when I read about that, All In and Young and Pure, it's like heavy driving classic rock, but then also these really silky, like smooth ballads that are just, it's binding. Like Molly's voice, like it's so, so, so good. Like it's kind of a album that I love to get lost in or like get pumped up. Like it
Mhm.
has like this duality between the 2 that has it mixed together, and their album after that is really great too, but I always find that that first one really hits hard for me. They do covers as well, classic rock covers. When they were live, they did Sweet Emotion, which was really great, when I saw them live, but yes, if you can see them live, they are
Ooh,
they're so fucking
yeah.
incredible, like, I yes, it is something that you one should do. Go see ThunderPussy live, support them in any way possible, they are fucking incredible, I love them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's probably the most number of times we said pussy on this show somehow.
Maybe that's why I picked it.
It's a great just rolls off the
It
tongue,
is, it
that
just
word.
does, literally.
Pussy just rolls off the tongue. Sue me. Uh, well, everybody out there who's still listening somehow, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/get
Yes.
offset for as little as $5 a month. You get access to our exclusive Discord server. Big ups to the people who have joined recently.
Anna's
We
been
got an
great, I've loved her addition recently.
let me see who's our newest Patreon supporter. John Lampson, thank you so
Thanks,
much,
John.
John. Check your inbox for an
Hey.
invite to the Discord
Come
server.
to the Discord. Come to the dark
Join us.
side.
Join us. We
One
also have
of
merch at
us.
getallsetpodcast.com/shop, including a shirt with my dumb face on it. I sold another one last week. I don't know how this keeps happening. My parents are still confused. Keep confusing my parents. I'm a little confused myself, so keep confusing me.
Yes, yes. I find it hilarious. I love that it's like the roving pants. It's like your shirt is like traveling around out there.
I think it'd be really funny if somebody wore that shirt to NAMM.
Oh my god, that would be.
All right. That's all I've got really. Do you have anything else other than liking, commenting, subscribing?
I have something really, really quick, and I'll make it as quick as possible. I just finished editing, exporting the Marshmallow demo. I am planning to have it out Thursday night, the premiere, 8:30
Eastern,
Eastern time in the
5:30
evening.
Pacific.
Yes, I wanted to stay away from April Fools 'cause, like, no, like, this is real.
Smart.
So, yes, yes, exactly. So, yeah, Thursday night is the premiere. I'm really excited. I think total this kind of ended up being, like, close to, like, 4 months to make. It doesn't start off the way my normal, like, demos do, and it's very much story driven and dialogue, but I will put timestamps in there and it is definitely geared towards more ambient guitar players and sound designers. So going into that,
Nice.
know that so that you know what you're going in for. Just pretty much like
Totally.
a cartoon show essentially.
Yes, love that. Everybody, please go check that out. We'll talk about it, I'm sure, on the podcast next
Yes,
week.
I'll be excited.
Um, but until then, thanks for watching/listening.
Thanks for understanding.
Until next time, my name is Emily.
I'm Joan of Heart.
Goodbye.
Be seeing you.